Hey, it's Eliza from Eliza Has No Clue, and today we are going to be talking about why we read books when we hate the main characters. Today I'm going to be going through like my getting ready routine. I'm actually going to perm my lashes and my brows, do my hair, do some makeup, have some fun with all of that while talking about this topic. Why would you read a book if you hate all the main characters? So I see this question posed all the time in the Sarah J Maas fandom community, particularly with the novel series ACOTAR, which I think is probably the biggest book talk series. And to me is really interesting how this series captured a large swath of adult female readers who many of whom haven't read in a really long time. I've been gone for quite a while. I don't think I've posted since like 2021. And at that time I was posting all about makeup and hair care. And while I love those things, I've definitely kind of grown and would like to talk more about my interest in literature. I was a theater major and English minor, and so it's something I really love and something I've taken with me throughout my graduate school career. I've actually since graduated graduate school, so I have my master's degree as of now. And so I feel like it'll be fun. I'll use the tools that I've learned through my education and hopefully the skills I've learned from YouTube and social media with makeup and all of that, and hopefully combine them into one big old fun mess. So let's get ready to talk about this topic. I am super excited. I'll be scrolling on TikTok and I'll see somebody pose this question in response to somebody being critical or hating on one of the main characters in ACOTAR, particularly Rhysand. People love to defend Rhysand. He is everyone's book talk boyfriend. He's the most popular character in ACOTAR, even more popular in my opinion than the female protagonist in that series. Someone will comment something that's critical of Rhysand, and then somebody else will respond, why do you read the series if you don't like him? Like, why do you read the series if you don't like any of the main characters? And I think that's, an interesting point and, very relevant. And to kind of discuss this further, I think it's helpful to discuss a series that's not as culturally relative so that we can kind of relinquish our bias. Let's use Twilight as an example. In the year of 2025, we can divide Twilight readers and Twilight fans up into 3 different camps. And I'm just speaking very broadly. Of course, there are more types of readers, but this is just very broad brushstrokes. So there are genuine readers who come at Twilight from wanting to be included in all of the pop culture references. They want to have a greater understanding of how Twilight has impacted culture in general. And maybe these readers are genuine fans and find the series both intriguing, comical, whatever. Alternatively, there are tons and tons of people who come at the novel Twilight from a point of being really critical. And when I say critical, I mean critical in a literary sense, like wanting to dissect the novel and see how it reflects our cultural norms, specifically the cultural norms that have been influenced by Mormonism and how Stephanie Meyer's religion influenced the book. And finally, there are those who come at Twilight from a perspective of just wanting to be a hater and wanting to be critical in a way that's not super friendly to the author or to the fans or whatever. They just want to be critical of the book. I kind of can relate to this because I think it's kind of fun to be very critical of books, and that's part of the reason I was like an English major and a theater major. Like, I loved talking about literature and plays and all of that and being critical of them, not just like accepting them, but also like being a low-key hater. To me, all of these different types of Twilight readers all have legit reasons for why they want to read Twilight. But if we take a look and zoom way out and kind of go at everything from a macroscopic point of view, it's easy to see which of these 2 camps are going to butt heads the most. And those would be the genuine readers, the ones that are reading because they enjoy the book for whatever reason, and those who are just absolute haters. And because most of us aren't super invested in the Twilight universe anymore, it's kind of easy for us to feel like it's all a little bit silly. So let's move on to talking about a more culturally relevant, more up-to-date series ACOTAR. So keep in mind, I love these series and I'm not trying to diss ACOTAR by what I'm about to say next. ACOTAR is modern day Twilight. And when I say that, I do not mean that the plots are similar. I do not mean that the worlds in which these books are similar. ACOTAR is high fantasy, whereas Twilight is more of like a romance with supernatural elements. Like, these books are different, but how they are similar is that they have captured a large swath of adult female readers and some like teenage readers, of course, and gotten many people back into reading. In my opinion, how these books were able to capture such a wide range of readers is because they're reflective of what the modern woman wants from their relationships. They want love, they want loyalty, they want someone to be borderline obsessed with them. Because I mean, like, who wouldn't want those things? I mean, I'm definitely one of those people. Another way in which these books are very similar is the fact that you really are supposed to relate heavily to the female main character. So in these kinds of novels, the author is allowing you to be Bella. She's allowing you to be Feyre. And you're allowed to see yourself as that character and insert yourself as that character. And you are seeing your, you know, idealized version of your ultimate male love interest in these male characters. This is where I'd like to introduce the concept of aesthetic distance. Keep in mind that the authors of these romance novels would like you to feel very close, like you're almost the female main character. And that's intentional, and that's very, you know, typical of most romance novels. I first learned about aesthetic distance when I took a literature course that focused on plays. And in this class, we discussed why some plays, some pieces of media upset us more than other pieces of media. Put simply, aesthetic distance is the gap between our reality and the fictional world created in a book or a play or another piece of media. To explain this concept further, I actually think it's really helpful to think of movies. In particular, let's use American Psycho and American Sniper as examples to discuss further. In American Sniper, we relate really heavily to the plot, partially because most of us probably know a veteran. The point of view in this movie also allows us to experience the emotional turmoil that these characters are going through. Because of this, it allows for more devastation when traumatic events occur to these characters. You feel close to them, you feel like you know them, and therefore you feel for them. So let's take the film American Psycho. We come into this movie already not really liking the main character. He's kind of this hammed up supervillain, and his actions throughout the movie are unbelievable, and most of us cannot relate to the world of stockbrokers and extreme wealth, and so we're not too invested in his particular emotional plight or the emotional plight in other characters. This is also because the film is very heavy on social commentary, and we're able to clock that really quickly and realize this film is very allegorical. And because of this, when traumatic events happen, we're not crying, we're not upset in the same way we would be while watching a film like American Sniper. In American Sniper, you feel very close to the characters. The aesthetic distance is very narrow. Whereas in American Psycho, you're kind of watching this story unravel from afar. You're not crying, maybe you're gasping, maybe you're shocked, but you're not in that world, and the aesthetic distance is greater. How large the gap is does depend on the author's intention, but it also depends on the reader, the consumer of this media. So now that we know a little bit more about aesthetic distance, let's return to the original question. Why would you read a book in which you hate all of the main characters? The obvious answer to this question that was initially posed is that we all have free will and we can do whatever we want. However, this is not helpful when trying to examine the motivations behind the asking of this question. So let's get into more of where I usually see this question being posed. So as I have mentioned, I initially saw this conversation occurring over on TikTok, and I imagine if you are a well-followed creator who posts about ACOTAR, it's probably really annoying to have people hate on your favorite characters, especially in your like own comment sections. Like I imagine that gets very, very old really quick. However, I also see this kind of comment in response to people who have posted about characters in the series and are just critiquing. People will show up in their comments being like, why do you read these books if you don't like the characters? And to me, there's a logical fallacy in the asking of this question. Posing this question in response to a comment about Rhysand is dismissive of any actual critique of the actions of his character and assigns the commenter a belief that they may not agree with. It's also stating this belief that this person who's hating on Rhysand is a troll, a hater, and is a mean and nasty person, which again may or may not be true. Like, we don't know each other through these screens. Engaging with people on the internet in this manner is evident of this non-thinking approach that many readers take to consuming works like Twilight and ACOTAR. And I think this is a valid approach. Like, we don't have to critique and discuss these characters. We can just enjoy them for what they are. Like, these books are sometimes silly, sometimes they're fluffy. Like, we don't need to go into why they are the way that they are. But for me and many, many others, it's very interesting and it makes reading these books all the more enjoyable. So let's answer this question with another question. Why do people have to read books or like to read books about characters they like, about characters they see as extensions of themselves? One reader might engage with this text in a way where these characters feel like they're friends or they're enemies. Someone else might read the same book and draw parallels between the main characters and historical figures that have committed war crimes. They're approaching the novel in different ways, and neither way is invalid. For one person, the aesthetic distance is very close, it's very tight-knit. And for another person, they view this story from a zoomed out perspective. The ACOTAR series is still ongoing, so I'm very interested to see how this community of readers evolves when considering these novels, and I'm wondering if we'll ever get to a place of like the Twilight fandom, the place where Game of Thrones is at, or the place where Twilight is now, where people are, you know, able to talk about these books critically. Because at one point, Edward Cullen was Rhysand. Like, he was that character. He was the ideal book boyfriend. And that's since evolved, and so I wonder if we'll see a shift in the future regarding the characters in ACOTAR. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hulu has the rights to the ACOTAR show, but from the last I heard, essentially what happened is it just came to a halt during pre-production, and so they're not actively making the show anymore, which kind of sucks. I mean, like, hopefully they do one day, but like a lot of times these shows get shopped around to different networks. So just because Hulu has the rights now doesn't mean that like somebody else might have them in the future. I personally think that ACOTAR would thrive in an animated format. Like, think something in the style of like Castlevania. Like, I think that would be so cool, and also would probably be maybe a little bit more economical. Like, I know animated series are still really expensive, but like a live action series with all of those special effects, like that would be really hard to pull off. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video and considering all of the thoughts and feelings I have poured out to you today. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and also go follow me over on TikTok, and I will catch you later. Bye-bye.